Welcome to the Essentially You podcast. Kayla, honey, how are you doing today, girl?
Doing good. How are you, Dr. Mariza?
I am
Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to have you on. I remember when we talked on your podcast, which I'm super excited about as well. You have an incredible podcast that I will be talking about in a little bit, and an amazing Hormone Puzzle Society. I just love all the work that you're doing. And what we're talking about today is syncing our cycle with the moon. And I know that this is this is not only one of your favorite topics, but like this is what you've helped so many women do is really sync their cycle, understand their cycle, and we have that power and that potential to connect with nature and the moon.
Yes.
Now, before we talk about that, because I know people are like, okay, how do we do this? Before we do that, I want you to just share your defining moment that you decided, you know what? Women need help when it comes to their hormones, and I'm going to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem.
For sure. So it all started when I struggled with infertility. I went down that road of we tried to get pregnant. It took us over 2 years, which to some people that doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're in it, every day is too long.
Every month is too long.
Yeah,
every test
month.
you take is too long, right?
Yes. So we went down that road. We started with the medical route, and I was told because I was 36 that I needed to do IUI. And if that didn't work, I would have to do IVF. And I said, I'm completely healthy. I don't understand why I have to do a medical procedure if I'm completely healthy. My body should be able to do this naturally. So I left that doctor's office and I said, I'm on a mission to see what I need to do to optimize my fertility naturally. And that's exactly what I did. I figured out what I needed to eat, what my lifestyle needed to look like. My exercise was too much. My toxins were too much. Like I just really dove in. My gut needed to be fixed. And so that's what I did. And that led me to be able to get pregnant naturally and have my first at 37, my second at 40. And then I decided to go back to school and made it my mission to help other women realize that there's a better alternative. There is a natural alternative and you can get pregnant naturally later in life. And so that's what I did.
I love it. I want to speak into your journey a little bit just because I know my audience probably knows this about me as well. I got pregnant at 40 with my first.
I love it.
I did a lot of work to get there, like really prepping my body. And I want to speak into, you going to the doctor, what they have for you is here are your two options. You're 36, you are what they call like advanced aging. Yes, advanced aging. Yeah. And they're like, here's your options. It's because and let's be honest, that's what they have.
Right.
That's what those are what's in their back pocket. You've got PMS symptoms. Here's some birth control pills.
Yes.
You've got, you're not able to get pregnant after trying for 2 years. This is what we have.
Yep. And here's some Clomid, here's some Letrozole, here's an IUI. And that's what they got. Yeah.
And you said to yourself, you know what? I know that my body has a capacity for healing. I know that overall I feel great. I want to do some work in terms of what I can do naturally to increase my fertility, increase my cycle, make sure everything's working properly. So, and I know that you did a multitude of things. Was there one thing in particular that you felt really helped to support you on this journey?
Yes, it's definitely the diet piece, and I say diet meaning what I was eating.
Yes.
I was eating way too few calories. I was not eating enough fat. I was eating lean cuisine because I thought that was healthy. I was a personal trainer. I'm like low calorie, lots of working out and eating lean cuisines. That was my thing. So I really think changing my diet was what helped me, and starting to implement cycle syncing, which we're going to talk about. Those two things I think are what really kind of turned things around for me.
I love that. Now, at the time too, Kayla, honey, had you been tracking your period or your cycle at all? I was just curious because I know so often, when it comes to body literacy, reproductive literacy, there's a lot of things that no one tells us to do.
Right.
Like we don't even know when we're ovulating necessarily. Like if it was my grandmother would tell you that anytime, all the time, someone sneezes on you, you'll get pregnant. Right. That's my little Catholic grandma. I was scared to death to get pregnant when I was younger, because my grandma's like, you will anytime. And now we know that's not true.
Exactly. Yeah. And I find that a lot. And for me, I was not tracking my cycle. I really didn't even get into this work until I started having problems getting pregnant. And I thought, like you said, my grandma always taught me, and we learned in sex ed class, like you can get pregnant, don't sit next to your boyfriend, you might get pregnant. And so that's what I thought. And I always joke about this too, because I went to my doctor, I was struggling with infertility, all of this stuff. And she never said to me, like, are you ovulating? Are you tracking your cycle? How long is your luteal phase? Like, she didn't tell me any of that. So it's
Real
so
talk.
helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And these are, I just want to point out the fact that these are things we've got to know. And not just for whether we're trying to get pregnant or not. I always think that whether you want to have a baby or not have a baby, your menstrual cycle is a key indicator of your overall health. And so you ovulating and your body being ready to have a baby is so critical for our overall health and well-being. So I just want to just speak into that as well. And knowing, I know so many women, especially I take care of a lot of women in perimenopause, and they're struggling with PMS symptoms, they're struggling with all kinds of stuff, but they're not even sure what's going on in their luteal cycle. They're not even sure if they're ovulating or not. And until we kind of have that information, it can be really difficult to make modifications based on what is going on. And so that part of that literacy, I think, is so, so critical. And I'm glad that you advocate for that.
For sure. I always say I want to go back to like junior high and teach all the girls, like, this is what a normal period is. This is how you track your cycle. Like, forget the algebra class. Let's go with some women's health classes.
It's so true. It's so true. So let's talk a little bit about cycling and what does it mean to sync our cycle? What does it mean to actually get really clear with what is going on?
Yes. So cycle syncing is actually a functional medicine concept. And it's when a woman partners her food, fitness, work life, and social life with the four phases of her monthly cycle. So she's either giving her body the food and the lifestyle pieces she needs to make these certain hormones that she needs, or she's giving her body food and lifestyle pieces to detox her hormones once she's gone through that cycle. So a big part of it is tracking your cycle, knowing, how long is your whole cycle, knowing when you ovulate, and kind of sprinkling in these foods and activities around certain times. And it's also, if you think about it, it's almost like intuitively doing what your body needs anyways. It's listening to yourself and saying, okay, my energy is low right now. My hormones are probably low right now. It's okay to do a yoga class or to walk around the block. I don't have to go and do spin and kill myself because I think I'm going to gain weight if I don't. So it's really, that's intuitive listening to the body, which is a key piece to cycle syncing.
Well, I want you and I know we've had a couple episodes on cycle syncing, but I want you to walk us through a little bit because I think, society for women, they want us to show up where we're in our ovulatory phase or we're stepping into that ovulatory phase where testosterone and estrogen are just like skyrocketing. And everyone wants us to live in that place, right? We're at our best, we're at our happiest, we're at our most high energy, but that's not every phase of our cycle. And what I think ultimately ends up happening, I think you see this and you probably did it. And I know I've done it. Like I have fought my way through the end of my luteal cycle. I'm like, I will go to that spin class, even if I want to kill somebody before and after I get out of it. I will go to that HIIT training, even if I am exhausted after it. We fight through these cycles. So can you break down just really quickly all the parts of our cycle, kind of where we're low in our hormones, where we're high in our hormones, just to kind of paint the picture of a little bit of what we can expect with our cycle?
Yeah, for sure. And to go into that point a little bit with what you were saying, I think it's a very male dominated, still very male dominated. So males are go, go, go all the time, masculine energy, where us females, we need to tap into that feminine energy, and we don't have to go, go, go all the time. And that's where I think cycle syncing can be really important. So to go through the four phases and to kind of talk through the hormones. So we're going to start with our menstruation phase, and that's when we're actually bleeding or on our period, usually day 1 through 5 of the 28-day cycle. This is when our hormones are pretty low. So we'll notice that our energy is pretty low. We want to do more, think of it like a tree where, a tree's in the winter and it doesn't have a lot of leaves and it's kind of the roots are grounding into the ground. And so that's what we are. We're trying to go into ourselves. We're trying to self-reflect. We're taking time for ourselves. Our exercise needs to be low and slow. Like I said earlier, our food, we need to really focus focus on warming foods. We want to keep that uterus warm. We want to keep, our blood flowing and not congealing. And so that's menstruation. Then as we go into follicular, think about that tree is just now starting to bloom. We're starting to get some leaves. Our follicles are getting ready to pop an egg. We are, it's like a rebirth, almost like a spring.
Like a
Our
spring.
hormones,
Yeah.
yeah. Our hormones are rising. We are getting some more energy. We're starting to feel a little bit more alive. And so during that time, it's okay to kind of turn up the intensity a little bit. You're going to have some energy. So let's use that energy. Let's, go to that spin class. Let's be social. And that's the other thing with follicular. You start to want to be more social as you hit ovulation. So use that energy for what it's there for. For food, it's more light, fresh salads, raw juices, more raw foods. You don't have to so much be in that warming phase. You can get a little bit more of those colder foods. And then as you go into ovulation, that's like prime time. If you're married, that's the time to mate. If you're trying to make a baby, if you are, if you're dating, it's the time to find a mate. It's time to, just be alive, be out, be free. And that's when our hormones are at their peak. So you're going to notice you have the most energy, you have the most charismatic, you're charismatic, you really are just like alive and, glowing. So during that phase, when those hormones are super high and that egg is about to pop out of that follicle, you want to be eating more antioxidant rich foods, dark leafy vegetables and lots of berries, and really protecting that egg and those, from those free radicals. For exercise, it's the time where you want to do it hard. Like if you have the energy and you feel alive, go and do that, run a marathon, go to that really hard class, boot camp, cycle class, whatever it is. And you feel like being around people. So that's another
you're very
thing.
nurturing.
You want to be out and about and, alive. So that's ovulation. And then as we go into luteal, think of it as we're going back into winter. We're kind of coming back into ourselves. And luteal is really broken up into 2 weeks. And so it's the last 2 weeks before your period starts again. And so the first week you're coming off of ovulation. You might still have a lot of energy. You can use that energy, do the hard classes if you want. But if you don't feel like it, like you said earlier, don't push that. Don't just go because you're like, I got to go. I got to get this class in. No, it's okay to kind of, lay off a little bit and do some more slow, gentle movements. Food, it's all about detox. We're trying to detox those hormones. They're trying to come back down. We want to detox them so they don't get recirculated back into our bodies. So that's all about, natural detox food, fennel, lemon, garlic, onions, those types of foods. High fiber, anything that's going to help you to detox.
Yeah, we want to move it all the way through.
Yes. Get it on out of there. We don't want to recirculate that estrogen, especially. One thing I love to do during luteal is do a little elixir of like warm lemon water, apple cider vinegar, a cinnamon stick, those kind of things to kind of flush everything out. And so luteal, the hormones are trying to detox. The exercise, the first week you can still be kind of high intensity. The next week is when you want to start to slow down a little bit. It's when you really want to pamper yourself. It's right before your period. You want to start looking for any signs of the period. So that can kind of give you your body's report card. It can say, okay, I've taken care of myself well all week, or I haven't. And so during that week, you want to, if you start seeing any signs of the period, cramping, bloating, fatigue, PMS, then you can say, okay, well, maybe next month I can do a little bit better. So luteal is for exercise. You can go slow again, walking, yoga, those types of things.
Now, do you recommend? I love that, because that's
that
what we need to hear.
No, that was
a lot. I feel like I know you're listening right now, and I thought that was so eloquent. I thought you did such an amazing job, and it's just I love that we have a little reiteration of things we may have heard in the past, and what I love so much is that the detoxification during that luteal phase, like clearing that excess estrogen, clearing out the excess testosterone if we have excess testosterone, and even helping to clear out. Although after we hit that rise in progesterone, making sure that our liver and our gut is functioning properly. Do you recommend too towards that second? Because I always think of it's 4 phases, but there's like part 2 of phase 4, right? 2 parts. And it's the phase we know the best, right? Because we're more conscious of it. In part 2 of phase 4, like this last part of the luteal phase, as we're getting towards menstruation and starting back at phase 1 again, is there a recommendation around squashes and sweet potatoes, maybe stepping up our carbs just a tiny little bit, the fibrous foods as well. Cause I know that we crave those. And sometimes sometimes it's the chips that technically are showing up, or the breads, or the cookies. And we feel so guilty and so shameful about eating those things. But really our body is kind of asking for a little bit of an increase in fiber, an increase in healthy carbs as well. I wanted to know if you agreed on that, or if you thought that that was true.
Yes, definitely agree on that. I agree with, listen to your body, and you do need a little bit more carbs around that week. You might be PMSing, and a carb is going to do you some good. And I always say, I want you to eat healthy carbs. I want you to eat the sweet potatoes and the squash and all of that. But if you just love something, let yourself have a little bit and really love it. I always say, if there's a cookie sitting there, don't just eat it because it's there. But if you love that cookie, then freaking eat it and enjoy it. So,
savor it, right?
Exactly.
Love that. Okay, good. Because I know so often we're fighting that urge too, and I think that there's something, again, that intuitiveness that you talked about, intuitively listening to your body. Women are cyclical. Oh my guys, we're going to tie it back to the moon in just a second too. And it's men literally reset every day.
Right.
And that's massively different than us.
Yep.
We are cycling all the way through 28 days, give or take, depending on where you land. Again, tracking your cycle, so important here. But and we've got to really tune into what intuitively feels good at the time. And not every day is a cheerleading day. Not every day are we cheering for everybody. We're the hype woman for everyone. Like it's not like that every day. And that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Okay, so talk to me. Let's take it up a notch. Let's upgrade our cycling, syncing. Let's talk about syncing to the moon. And I know women listening to this, intuitively, they've seen it. It's kind of just happened. Kind of like how we sync with our family members too, right? It's amazing how that happens as well. So talk to me, how can we sync, and what are some of the benefits of syncing with the moon?
Yeah. So, we're always kind of tapping into that Earth's natural energy. So that's where syncing with the moon comes in. It's almost like the rise and fall of the tides. It's the yin and yang, kind of that energy there. So it's really looking at, even though you're not having a cycle anymore, you can still benefit from cycle syncing, and you can still get even though you're not bleeding, you're still having a hormone fluctuation. And so I see this a lot with anybody I work with that doesn't have they have an irregular cycle, or they're struggling with infertility. Maybe they've got PCOS, their cycle is kind of all over the place, or, you're in perimenopause, you're in menopause, you've stopped, your period has stopped. And so you can really benefit from doing this moon cycling, just like you would if you were cycling with your own cycle, and you follow it kind of the same. You start with a new moon, which would be your period. And then you go, as the moon goes into that waxing phase, that's your follicular phase. The moon's kind of changing the Earth's atmosphere, all of that. As you get to what would be ovulation, that's going to be your full moon. And then as you go into luteal, that's the waning moon. And so you really kind of look at a new moon calendar and say, okay, when is new moon? This is when I'm going to start doing this. This is when I'm supposed to be on my period. And you follow that moon calendar like that and go through what I just went through with cycle syncing. All the phases of the moon, you do the same. Eat those foods, do those exercise. And it's really, again, it's about listening to your body and kind of intuitively doing what you feel like you want to do anyway, based on where your hormones are. And so another thing that I like to have my clients do is, when you are moon cycling, go outside when the moon is starting to come up, and let the moon let the glow of the moon come down on your skin. And so you're really absorbing, and I don't want to get too woo-woo on everybody, but I promise there's science behind this. You let your body absorb that energy from the moon. And so it kind of sets your body's natural circadian rhythm, your internal clock. And then you'll start to notice that cycle syncing, it's almost like you're having a cycle, but you're not having that bleed. You'll start to feel that energy rise and fall, and all of it kind of ties in beautifully together. So I love cycling with the moon. I think it's such an amazing gift that we get to do.
I love that. Well, I have so many women, I'm taking care of women in perimenopause and into menopause. And we know that perimenopause things can get, it's just shifting, right? We're decreasing our progesterone levels, estrogen, especially deeper in the phase of perimenopause. Things are just, they're inconsistent. And sometimes then you're in the waiting room of like, is this my last period?
Right.
Right. And then 3 months later, one comes and then you're like, okay, I start all over again. Is this my last
Right.
period?
Right.
And so what are some of the, I mean, I know women are kind of like figuring out because there's a little bit of a, not only a rebirth on the other side, but also kind of a grieving period of like, this is ending for me, and it's can be this really interesting middle ground of like trying to find our footing, find our way. With moon cycling, have you found there to be a lot of benefits of women just saying, okay, actually, I feel like I can get back into some type of a cycle, but also some type of rhythm with my body again? Can you speak a little bit into that as well? What could be some of the benefits for us just kind of knowing that we can have a ritual to follow into, or are there really, do we feel better in our body as well?
Well, I've noticed on myself, I'm 44 and I haven't had any signs of menopause creeping up yet or perimenopause. And I've noticed with some of my clients, they feel better, they feel less symptoms, their PMS kind of like goes away, their unexplained weight gain is easier to lose, it's all the same benefits that you would get from cycling with your normal cycle. And I think a lot of that too, obviously the moon kind of gives you a pattern to follow, but a lot of that too is getting that diet dialed in, getting those, that exercise routine kind of dialed in, really listening to your body there. Some of this is a lot of mindset. I like to look at going into menopause as this is a rebirth. This is your second season in life. And you're kind of like, instead of things ending, this is your new beginning. Maybe your kids are kind of grown and you're starting the second phase of your life. And so I love to kind of switch that, and instead of saying like it's ending, no, this is my second half of life. It's just beginning.
I so love that. And I love painting that picture of, it perimenopause gets to look the way that we want. And
Right.
if we are really nourishing our bodies and really kind of following how we can nourish our menstrual cycle, how we can nourish our bodies throughout the cycle, whether it's kind of wonky or not, as we step into menopause, really aids in all those beautiful benefits of
Mhm.
not having perimenopausal symptoms. Cause that's where it becomes a hot mess. It's not even really menopause. It's getting to menopause, I think, is the struggle for a lot of women. And leveraging our moon cycle, which we can, again, you can just look up super easily and kind of get back on the page with it. It's such an easy and natural way to support our bodies.
For sure. For sure. I
Hmm.
love it.
I want to talk about the hormone puzzle method. This is
Yes.
your method. I know
Yes.
you've helped so many women not only get their cycles back on track, but again, a lot of women come to you because for whatever reason, they are working through getting their bodies more prepped for conceiving. And I don't, I have, there's so much around infertility. I'm so mindful about that languaging, because I think that that's not true for so many of us, that it's really just a matter of optimizing our body more
Mhm.
so that we're just infertile. It just feels so, I don't know, there's such a negative connotation with it. Like we're broken. And I'm not a fan of that.
No, no, I do not like the word infertility. I want to say you're optimizing your body for fertility, And so that's kind of how the hormone puzzle was born. It was my way of focusing on something that I could control in a season of my life where I felt out of control. I felt like there was a lot of stuff happening to me and people saying like, "Oh, you need to do this procedure. Well, your age, blah, 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 blah." So I was like, how can I focus? Like, what is in my control? And I knew that what I put in my mouth, what kind of exercise I did, how I meditated, like all of these things were in my control. So this is how the hormone puzzle was born. I just wanted something easy that I could focus on each day. And puzzle's an acronym. I'll go through it really quick.
Yes.
So yes, it's P, proper whole food nutrition, U, understanding supplements, Z, zapping stress, Z or Z's, sleep, L, love and encouragement, E, exercise and environments. And so these are all the things that I focused on a daily basis. And now that I'm in practice, it's what I teach my clients to focus on so they don't feel so out of control. They know they can get up in the morning and say, I'm going to eat this today. I'm going to do this kind of exercise. I'm going to do this kind of stress management. And I feel like I have a little bit of control back. And you know what? It works. I've helped thousands of women all over the world get pregnant by implementing some of these steps. So it's definitely a win-win.
I just love that. And I love that P is all about it's food. That's the
Yes.
first step. And I know that you mentioned that out the gate. And I 100% agree with you,
Mhm.
Kela, that food is everything. But one of the things I love to share, and I want to just tap into this as well, because I think a lot of this can happen for women is, you can't green smoothie or kale salad or fiber your way out of chronic stress. And I want to talk and speak into how stress is playing a role, because speaking into your story, you were handling a lot of things, you were doing a lot of things, you were training people, and you were working out really hard. I know that stress may have been a contributor to just your body thinking that it was in survival mode.
Right. For
And the
sure.
body's not going to focus on other activities if it needs to be in survival mode first and foremost. So speaking to me, especially as we saunter, women are having babies later and later, which I just love. Like, do you?
Yes.
That was my choice. I had massive chronic fatigue and stress issues before I got pregnant at 40 years old, years prior. So I've been there, and I saw my cycle take a major hit because of it. What have you seen in all the women that you've supported, where kind of stress is maybe playing a role there, and what are some things that we can do to navigate that?
Stress, as you know, is such a huge factor in fertility. It's the second leading cause of fertility related issues. It's almost just as important as what we eat is how we manage stress. And that could be perceived stress. So that's, your boss is yelling at you, you are sitting in traffic, or actual stress, you're working out too hard, you have an injury or an illness. Like, it's all stress to the body. And so learning how to manage that, so your stress hormones start to come down and your feel good hormones start to come up, your dopamine, your serotonin, your oxytocin, like that's what we want to take precedence over these stress hormones. And so a couple of ways to manage stress. I know I hate when people say just relax. Like, no,
I
it's more than
know.
that.
I know. And I know that women are told all the time, if they're struggling with, optimizing their fertility, it's like, okay, you just need to get your stress under control.
Right.
And here's the thing is, it's true.
Right? It's
But I know
true.
that I know that, I know so often it can feel bigger than that. You're speaking into some habits that we can do. I think the things that you're going to mention as well, not only can help optimize our cycle and our fertility, but also optimize so many other parts of the body as well.
Exactly, exactly. So, a couple of things that I talk about when it relates to stress. One is look at your schedule. Is there anything that's not serving you? If so, let's take it off. Let's put it on the back burner if it can't be eliminated. If it can be eliminated, I always question why is it in your life, anyways, if you can get rid of it. But I like to joke, you can't get rid of your mother in law, you can't get rid of, your neighbor, whatever. So let's think about how we can either put something on the back burner or eliminate it. And then let's look at some stress management techniques. I'm a huge fan of meditation, of gratitude journaling, of taking a little power down hour before I go to bed to relax and unwind and go from work mode to sleep mode. And then self care. I know we hear this all the time, but it is so important to take care of ourselves. Even I think I heard you say one time you take little balance breaks throughout the day, like set your clock and take little 10 minutes. I freaking love that. Like, that is so genius. And
Well,
I agree.
especially if you don't know how to, like, if you need to build it in,
Yeah,
girl, I
yeah.
gotta build it in. You know what
I
I'm
gotta
saying?
build it
Like,
in too. I gotta build it in. But it's so important. So for your listeners, just take that 5-10 minutes, every hour or two and do something you love. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend a lot of money or spend a lot of time. It can literally be like 5 minutes you walk outside in the grass. And if you can look at the moon, even better.
I
So
love
it
that.
can
And
be that simple.
I didn't realize, and I know that there's a lot of research, especially with the moon and our sleep, the moon and stress, but taking that energy from that. But I
Yeah.
have so many friends who have cycled with the moon on accident, not even intentionally, and have at just really being able to have kind of like a North Star, quote unquote, kind of guides you in that experience, I think is so, so important.
Mm.
Now, a little thing on stress I wanted to just tap into. I was in a medical forum a couple days ago, and one of the doctors, OBGYN, she said, hey, has anyone noticed that your patient's luteal cycle or their cycle is so off. Like all of a sudden they went from 28 days to 24 days, or they went from 26 days to 21 days. And she wanted to know why. She was like, I don't understand what's going on. And everyone chimed in. Stress. Like it's stress. And it's completely like across the board. All these practitioners jumped in and were like, I'm seeing this in almost all of my female patients. I'm seeing this across the board. In the women that you've been talking to, I know that you're guiding them through this, but have they been seeing some of those changes? I know with you on their side, they probably are bypassing some of the major pandemic stress that we're seeing, but have people been coming to you because they've seen that happen in their cycle?
Yes, for sure. For sure. And it's what you just said. It's stress. I mean, we are in a pressure cooker right now of stress from the pandemic, from people getting sick, losing loved ones, to job loss, to all of it. I mean, and throw fertility or menopause on top of that. And it's like, oh, how do we even survive? But yes, it can definitely throw off your cycle, throw off, everything that you're kind of working towards. And so that's why it's so important to have a stress management plan in place. So yes, for sure. I'm seeing that a lot.
I wanted to just speak into that because I know we don't always see the correlation. All of a sudden, like our periods are different, or it came sooner than we expected, and we don't know why. So I wanted to just speak into that too, because I had a feeling you were getting people coming to you because they were freaking out about what was going on with their cycle and what was going on with their body overall. Yes. I wanted to ask you, because I know that you are still living it. You are still living what you preach every single day. What are some of your favorite ways to support your cycle, to really not just support your cycle, but just really support your body on the daily? What are things that you love to do?
Yes. Well, I love, obviously I cycle sync. I love my smoothies in the morning. That's probably my favorite, my little tonic I talked about.
Yes.
I love any kind of self-care. I just am really, and this is something I've had to teach myself because I'm type A all the way. I'm like, let's go, let's do this, So I've really,
and you're a mama of two.
Yes, two little ones.
Yes.
So, and a business, which is my baby. So.
Yes. Let's talk about, yes, exactly. And guess what? That gets to be our baby, right? Yeah, that gets to be our baby too. My books are my babies. Yes, I got a lot of babies.
Right. Me too. But really, taking that time for myself, this year, especially, I've really taught myself to slow down, to focus within, to focus on that self-care. It's okay to take a break from working out. It's okay to take a break from work. Like literally I was working 7 days a week for probably 2 years. And I'm like, no more, I can't do this to myself anymore. So those are some of the things that I love to do. Self-care, my smoothies and my little tonics.
I love that. I love that so much. Now, Kela, honey, I know we had you kind of at a tight scheduling. So I wanted to I know that women are thinking to themselves, like, how do I learn this? Like, it's one thing to hear it today between the two of us. It's another thing to actually put it into action. And I think you did such a marvelous job of explaining how it works anyway, but I have a feeling you've got a beautiful little guide to walk us through this process.
I do. I have a cycle syncing quick start guide, which is on my website. It goes through if you're having a cycle, if you're not having a cycle, if you want to do the moon cycling, it goes through all of that. So my website is coachkela.com. You can go there and grab that for free.
Yay. Okay. So we're going to have that in the show notes. I am so excited to check this out myself. I can't wait to see how you lay this all out. And we're going to have it for all of you to grab because this is so important. This is how we attune into our bodies. This is how we understand and love our bodies. And you've given us such a beautiful tool to do that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been so fun talking to you. I love you so much. So thank you.
Oh, Kela, honey, thank you so much. And kiss those babies and just love them up for me. And I'm so grateful to have you on the show today. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you.